I don't know. I can get you a detailed answer as to like
Yeah.
what the composition of that team would be. But
So the combatant commanders are doing that
Yes.
legal review element, that
The
last
validation.
step.
Yes.
Okay. And sitting here today, I know you're not at the combatant command level, but sitting here today, are you aware of any concerns that have been raised in the last 6 months by any of those cells, any of those JAG officers involved about the legality of any targeting sets?
I am not, sir. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Amadei, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. The 2026 Annual Threat Assessment highlights intensifying competition with China and ongoing conflict with Iran. We are positioned to meet these challenges, but it requires fully resourcing our intelligence agencies and aligning every dollar with the national defense strategy. We must make disciplined choices without compromising the presence, responsiveness, and regional coverage our commanders depend on. Many point to AI as a way to do more with fewer people, and it is a powerful force multiplier, but we know it has its limitations. As we integrate new technologies, we should not trade away the skilled professionals and the human eyes and ears whose judgment and expertise allows us to anticipate and prevent the next global crisis before it unfolds. General Bradenkamp, adversaries like China and Russia now have near instant access to the same commercial high-resolution imagery the U.S. uses. How is the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency evolving its tradecraft to ensure that even with identical raw data, the U.S. maintains a superior decision advantage over its pacing threats?
Congressman, thank you for the question. And absolutely, that is something that we're absolutely looking into and executing changes and transformational initiatives, right, on how we set ourselves apart from how I would say private sector industry are executing their imagery collection operations. The tradecraft that I think specifically for NGA that we're having to leverage is we do have to leverage much more on the technology side than we've had to historically. I know we've had a lot of discussion about AI, ML, computer vision, new technologies, but those critical technologies and elements are essential for the way we execute our mission in NGA, not only today, but I would say even more so in the future. And we have to take those technologies and inculcate those into our tradecraft and our methodologies in terms of how we not only do that for tasking the sensors, but also how we integrate that into our processing, also in our analytics, in our dissemination at various classified levels or classified or unclassified levels for not only our warfighters, but for our policymakers and for our partners and allies that are out there. So that's one area that I would say is how we're leveraging those technologies and inculcating that into our tradecraft and how we do more of the high-end national technical means and geospatial intelligence, whether it's collect, analysis, or production for our agency.
And that'll maintain our competitive advantage?
And some other areas, Congressman, that I would ask if we could talk those in closed session.
All right.
Thank you.
And General, you've also emphasized that NGA doesn't just look at physical terrain, it also looks at human geography, things like where people get their water, how they vote, religious or ethnic identities. Can you explain why that's important?
Absolutely. Those elements actually provide much of the context that enable not only our warfighters, but our national policymakers to understand the global perspective and the human dimension that affects whether it's the economy that can impact a nation, whether it's the economic resources that will also impact a nation or a warfighting element for an adversary. And so we do take those particular areas into account and we layer those in with a number of our other geospatial intelligence components to then paint that fuller picture for the warfighters as well as the policymakers to clearly understand the geopolitical environment and I would say the global world that we have to operate in holistically.
Thank you. And Secretary, the intelligence community's 2026 annual threat assessment makes clear that China, Russia, Iran, North Korea all want to undermine America as a superpower. but says that their partnership remains shallow, transactional, undermined by competing strategic goals. Now, how is our defense intelligence enterprise exploiting our enemies' divergent interests to prevent them from forming a unified military alliance to make it more difficult to stop?
Congressman, in this session, I would just say that we are constantly ensuring that the intelligence collected informs our diplomatic process with globally and informs all of our strategies. And in a follow-on session, I'd be happy to provide details.
Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Ryan, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here, the work you're doing, and the work you've done over each of your careers in service to our country. I want to start with you, Undersecretary. Something I've been working on that I know is a priority for you as well is SCIF accreditation, speeding up, getting the best of American commercial technology to serve all the mission needs that we've talked about, and everybody sort of alluded to this. We've been trying to work on this in the NDAA. Last year, we had a provision to address this, ultimately directing the department to report on the feasibility of accelerating construction of SCIFs and accreditation. And then in 2025, worked on a requirement for a pilot program for access to shared classified commercial infrastructure. I know this is something that rightly the administration is prioritizing it as well. How's that going? What else can we do to speed this up? It's one of the biggest pain points that I'm sure you all hear from, that we hear from. And just a quick high-level update on that, please.
Absolutely, Congressman. I would just say it often goes over unnoticed, but it's an absolute critical element of supercharging our DIB. Not only will we have to increase the volume of providers, but the composition of the defense and industrial base will have to include more non-traditional players. And so our speed to service, we have to be a good partner in bringing non-traditional players rapidly into the ecosystem. I think it comes down to two parts, Congressman. First, we can certainly do more with the existing process. It's a passion of mine to make sure we achieve efficiencies here. I think there's synergies between the SAPF and SCIF accreditation process, and there's synergies across all the accreditators to make sure we're maximizing what we can get out of our current investment. That won't be enough. We have to think innovatively about what options exist between nothing and a full legacy accredited SCIF or FCL. There's a pilot program going on, and I think SCIF as a service or some of the commercial options or smaller options are certainly something we will have to integrate in our overall strategy.
Agree, and again, appreciate the leadership on this and anything that we can be doing as a subcommittee and a committee. I know colleagues as well on a bipartisan basis agree on this, so please let us know, especially coming into this cycle. Shifting gears a little